Agutavach. This is Gemara Pesachim Daf Lamed Vav. All the learning for this month, the month of Teves, has been sponsored as Chosi L'Nishmasa for Rasha Bas Aryalib, as well as Aryalib Ben Yaakov. The Neshama Shav a Elias Neshama. All the learning of the entire Chabura should be a schos for the Neshamis. We could continue with our Chaylim, who again I request everyone please to update the list. But Chaim Minchas Ben Aki to Meir Ben Kir Men Vavin Chaim Zaysh From Sidney Ezel Sarvas Can do Sin Chayzer Sarvas Sarvas Yosem Mendel. Elias Ben Revelation Bas Navia Shafiq Shivcha for 11 to be with the name of Hana Rezel. The Rachos of Yamus in the Micheli Sipur was Nethil Huvar Masivan Masha Esther Besay Shachli Israel, as well as Schozivuk Fratalea Basita amongst everyone else who needs Yeshuas. We pick it up from the bottom, the last narrow line on Lamed Hey Amid Beis, continuing the discussion that we began in the Mishnah of which items could you yes be yet to the mitzvah of matzah in. We began the discussion of this Masechta with Chametz, and now we are up to Matzah. Tanar Rabbanan says the Gemara in the last narrow line, Yachla, I would have thought, Yati de Andu Chavasai Betevel, you would think you could be Yetu with Tevel on Tith produce. Shaloi Nitzkan, that was not fixed. Shaloi Nitzkan, that's what I would have thought. Says the Gemara, Kol Tevel Nami Uloi Nitzkan. What does it mean? Tevel shaloi nitkan. All tevel is not nitkan. All tevel is not fixed. By definition, tevel is an item that's lo nitkan. That's not fixed. Says Gemara, elabit tevel shaloi nitkan called tzarkai. Means tevel that you did not fully fix it. Meaning what? Explains the Gemara. Shenel lemenu chuma gitelo v'nemenu chuma meiser. Means you took off one type of chuma but not the other. Meiser rishayin v'loi meiser sheni. Or you took a meiser rishayin, not meiser sheni, but v'filu meiser ani. So minayin. So again, yachal, I would have thought you could yes be to the mitzvah matzah. With what? With tevel. Now we're explaining it doesn't mean full-fledged tevel. It means tevel that you did part of the separations. Talmud Leimar says the Gemara, Lo yiseichel of chametz. You cannot eat on eat chametz. Mish eisuroi misham bal teichel of chametz. The item that the isser to not consume it is because of do not eat chametz. That is the item that you could use. This item, why can you not eat it? You cannot eat it. It has nothing to do with Pesach. You cannot eat it. Why? Because it is tevel. El misham bal teichal tevel. So therefore, says the Gemara, that is the reason why it's not going to be allowed to be used for a matzah. Ask the Gemara, 1 second. Visur the chametz lechanazah. I don't understand. You're telling me that it's only something that has an Isser of Chametz, and this does not have an Isser of Chametz, rather it has an Isser of Tevel. I don't understand. It's Pesach. It's Chametz. Where did the Isser of Chametz go? Amar Rav Sheishes, Amani Rav Shimoni. We're going to the opinion of Rav Shimon. The last line on Lamed Hey Amid Beis, Amar Ein Isser Chalal Isser. One Isser cannot be Chal, and the next it's the Tani we learned to the rice of Shimon Aimer. Says Rav Shimon, moving along to Lamed Vav. Amar Aleph. Says Rav Shimon, Ha'oichal nevila b'yom kippurim potter. Says Rav Shimon, you eat nevila on Yom Kippur, you're going to be potter. Why are you going to be potter? As Rashi in the Tab Rashi says, he's talking about a case you eat a b'shoigeg. And what are you going to be potter from? From chatos. Why? Day nisr Yom Kippurim chal isr nevila, says Rashi. The isr of Yom Kippur is not chal on nevila. It's also because of nevila. Now the isr of Yom Kippur will not be chal, and that's the reason why you're going to be potter from a chatos. That is the opinion of Rav Shimon. Ravina Amar says Rav Shimon, no. Ravina, I'm sorry, no. Afilu Deimar Rabbanan, Mishaisur Misha Bal Teichel Chametz Belvad, Yatazeh Shenisur Misha Bal Teichel Chametz Belvad. Again, one more time, I'm sorry. First, we answered a little bit of a running stop sign over there. Again, first we answered his opinion of Rav Shimon. Why Rav Shimon in Isser Chal Isser? Where do we see this concept of Rav Shimon that one Isser is not Chal in the next? Says the Gemara in the case of Nevila on Yom Kippur. Rav Shimon holds if you eat Nevila on Yom Kippur, it is potter because the Isser of Yom Kippur is not Chal on top of Nevila. Fine. Answer number 1, why you cannot use tevel for a matzah. Says the Gemara, says Ravina, no. Says Ravina, afilu tema rabbanik, even be the opinion of the Rabbanan. So how do we know? So Rabbanan says Ravina, misha yisur misha bal teichal chametz bilvad. The item has to be something that the only isser is bal teichal chametz. However, this item says Ravina, according to the Rabbanan, who argue when Rav Shimon old yesh iser chal iser. So why are you not allowed to eat this item? Number 1, it's tevel. Number 2, it's chametz. So what's the reason why it cannot be used for matzah? Tevel in general, says the Gemara, because it has to be bal teich chametz bilvad. That's the only iser. Ela'av misham bal teich al tevel. This is something that also has an iser of tevel. Says the Gemara, midi bilvad ksiv. How do you know that? Does it say anywhere that it's only Where do you know that from? Says Gemara, you are correct. Rav Sheshes is the correct answer. Rav Sheshes was the first answer, who says we're going to be in Rav Shimon that Ein Isser Chalal Isser. So again, the Mishnah taught us, I should say, that you're not allowed to use tevel for the Chiyuv of Matzah. The Gemara explains it's tevel that was partially fixed, and the reason is that being Rav Shimon that Ein Isser Chalal Isser, the only thing that you could potentially use for Matzah is something that would have potentially had an Isser of Chametz, which excludes this item, which only has an Isser of tevel. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbana, 6 lines down, Amrav and Alf. Continuing on the same theme, at the end of the Mishnah we said all the items you cannot be Yotzei Matzah with. One was Tevel, one was Meiser Sheni. Says the Brisa, I would have thought Yochel, I would have thought Yotzei Adam Chavas Meiser Sheni B'Shlayim. Talmud Leimar says in the Torah, Lechem Oini Ma Shenechal Be'aninos. We learn out the word Oini as if the ayin was an alf, that only something which you're able to eat in aninus, a state of aninus, is someone who's an Oini. Someone who lost a close relative but has not done the kavura yet. So in that status of Oini, so I would have thought, Lechem Oini, I should say, not I would have thought. Masha Nechel Ba'aninas has to be something that you eat when you are in Oini. Yotzazeh Nechel Ba'aninas El B'Simcha, Ma'it Truma. Meiser Sheni, I'm sorry, is excluded because Meiser Sheni is an item that cannot be eaten by Ninas, it has to be in B'Simcha. Divri Rav Yosi Aglili. Rav Akiva, Rav Akiva says, no, that's not how I know. Matzos Riba. We have a special addition, a special learning out, a special that we're going to come to include for the fact that there says Matzos Matzah. So again, we start over the prices. How do we know? You could say, one more time, I would have thought you could be Yaiti with Meiser Sheni. Answers the Gemara, according to Rav Yisei Aglili, why can you not be Yaiti with Meiser Sheni? Lachem Oini with an ayin, which we learn as if it has an aleph that has to be Sunday when you're 90. Says Rav Yisei Aglili, therefore you cannot be Yaiti in the mitzvah with Meiser Sheni. Says Rav Akiva, no, that's not the reason. The reason is Matzos Riba. Explain, and it comes to include. Says the Gemara, according to Rav Akiva, what do we need the word Lechem Oini? Says Rav Akiva, Prat, this should sound familiar. Liisa Ilusha b'yayin v'shemen, bread that was baked and kneaded with oil and wine, udvash and honey, well, matzah ashira we coined it, and that cannot be used because there's lechem oini, and we saw on the Rashi in the bottom of Amud Aleph was because it was lechem oini, something which is a poor man's bread and not a bread with oil, water, oil, wine, and honey. Says the Gemara, okay, fine, but I'm by time with Rav Akiva, flipping the tables. Where does Rav Akiva get his din from? Matzah is riba, mikasev lechem oini with a vav, oni ksev. It says lechem, it says lechem oni. Well, Rashi over here explains, if you look up in Rashi, Miksev Oini Bevav, the Tishva Mine Oini as if it had an aleph. Rather, it says it with an ayin, without the vav, and therefore it has the connotation of ani, of poor man's bread, says Rav Akiva, and therefore it comes to exclude rich man's bread, matzah ashira, bread with wine, bread with what? Oil, bread with honey. Rav Yosef Aglili, what does he respond? Mikarinon oini, oini karina. We don't read it ani, we read it oini. So says Rav Yosef Aglili, we let it read it as if it has an aleph. Rav Akiva, that which we read it oini. Again, we have a ksiv and a kri going on here. That's basically what's going on. We're trying to figure out what takes precedence. Is it the fact that it has no extra vav, and therefore you potentially could have read it as ani, or is it the fact that lamaisa you read the word as oini, and therefore it could be like similar to the aleph, like an oinin. Rav Akiva, I think green be oini kedish Shmuel. Why does it say oini like Shmuel? Damar Shmuel lechem oini lechem shaina loves harbe. It's the bread that you say a lot of words in it. Meaning what? The Haggadah. So Rav Akiva says the Gemara. Okay, very nice. You clouded all loose ends. Does Rav Akiva really hold? Does he hold you cannot be yoyed to the mitzvah with matzah ashira? Vatani learned in a brayse. Ein losh and eats as bepesach. B'yayin v'shemen udvash. Ve'im losh. Let's say you did it. Rav Gamliel loimer tisra miyad. Burn it. But Chachamim oimrim, yoichel, you can eat it. Ve'omar Rabbi Akiva, who's the opinion we're looking for? Says Rabbi Akiva, that's this brisa. Shabbati hoisa eitzel Rabbi Elazar. I was next to Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yeshua. Ulishtei lahem Isa, and they made for them a dough with wine, with oil, and with honey. And they didn't say anything to me. So these two great Jews, says Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Lezer, and Rabbi Yeshua, seemingly held you can use matzah with oil, wine, and honey. Says the Gemara, okay, maybe you can't knead it. What can you do? You can smear the top of it. Says the Gemara, that goes according to the opinion of the Tanakama. No, that which you can knead with, you can smear with this. That which you can knead with, you cannot smear the top of the dough with. Shein lashon as isa b'paishrin says the brisa you cannot knead the dough with lukewarm water. Then that is the end of the brisa. So what do we see clearly? We see clearly the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, which is what we're asking from. Because we see, what does Rabbi Akiva hold? If you go back up, where Rabbi Akiva was the opinion that said that he was sitting there by Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, and they made matzah with wine, honey, and oil. So how are you telling me Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that you cannot be yaitz with matzah shira? Rabbi Akiva himself in the Brisa says yes. Answers the Gemara like kasha. Habi yamtav rishon, habi yamtav sheni. Kedamli Rabbi Yeshua, like Rabbi Yeshua said, lebanei to children, yoimakama lo tishlu bechalva. The first day, no milk in the dough. Bikan v'ilech lashu bechalva. From day one and on, you could yes. We see the same thing over here according to Rabbi Akiva. Only day one was this din, but not every other day. Says the Gemara, 1 second, what did the Brisa say? From day one and on, you can make matzah with milk. But Dani, I did a brisa. What's going on over here? You cannot bake dough with milk. And we pointed out a few days ago that this is the marmakim, this is the big source. And the din is you're not allowed to make milchik bread because the din is that we're afraid you're going to come to eat it with meat. So why did you just tell me it's a day one din? What do you mean you're never allowed to make milchik bread? Says the Raisa. Says the Gemara, you're right. He meant to say honey. Knead it with honey. Teres number 1. Teres number 2, which is a very, very big, you cite a very big din with milchik bread. And as you see the letter over here, you see we pass this way. Ke'ein Tura Shari. If you make the bread in the shape of an axe, it is Motor Achanami Ke'ein Tura, in the shape of an axe. So Rashi doesn't say like I just said. Rashi says, what does Ke'ein Tura mean? Very important, Rashi. Because Allah, we're generally makel in all the shitas. Rashi says, Ma'at Kein Shal Jar Mutter Lolish B'chelev. You let him make a little bread. Why? You don't keep it around. So heter number 1 in making milchik bread is you make it in small quantities. Heter number 2, which Rishonim speak out elsewhere, is if it's Ke'ein Tura, which is what we spoke about a few days ago. It's when you make it in the shape of something else. That's why sometimes the donuts here in Eretz Yisrael, they make the icing a certain way. It definitely works to put on a sign that it's chalavi, but that is in a milchik bread. That is how we're answering up the stira. We're saying it's not a din in milk, rather it's a din in honey, and that is how we're explaining the brisa that said that you're allowed to be yotzei. You would think you could be yotzei with meiser sheni, but you cannot. And the machlekes stems from, how do you say lechem oini? Is it oini with a vav, which can be interpreted with an aleph, and therefore it's like aninus, and therefore it comes like sud meiser sheni? Or it says Rabbi Kiva, no, it's lechem oini without the vav. It's lechem ani. It's poor man's bread. And within there we spoke about the din of Shmuel, that Shmuel said basically like Shmuel, that what? I'm sorry, Rabbi Kiva like Shmuel, that it's the bread that you said many words in it, referring to the Haggadah. Let's continue 2 lines into the white line. Says they agree that you cannot knead the dough with lukewarm water. Says I understand. By the carbon mincha, you can knead it with lukewarm water. So you just be careful that it doesn't get chametz. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. The lecha taida mincha could also not become chametz. They were allowed to do with lukewarm water. So why by the matzahs were they not? Answers the Gemara, an answer we've seen many times. Amru's reason, Yom Mishain's reason. The carbon mincha was made by the Kayanim. They were his reason. They were very they had a lot of alacrity. They're very fast. That's the reason why we let them put directly on Pesach. No. Says the Gemara, 1 second. So then by the carbon mincha, you should be allowed to soak the kernels. If you soak the kernels, apparently, that And Rashi says, you soak the kernels, it makes a finer and a more pure flour. So why did they do that by the carbon mincha? Alama Tanan, Alama Amar Rav Zira, why did Rav Zira say Amar Abba Mirmia, Amar Abba Bar Yirmia Amar Shmuel, Chitin Shalvanachis, Ein Loisin as Alisha, Ein Loisin Isa, you're not allowed to soak it. Why are you not allowed to soak it? Answers the Gemara, Lisha Bizrizin Isa, Letisa less Bizrizin. The kneading of the dough, that was done by Kehanim, but the soaking, that was done even by Yisraelim. Says Gemara, 1 second, Elisha Mi Yisa Bizrizin, is that true? That the kneading of the dough for the carbon mincha was done by Kehanim? The Torah teaches us, Vayotzek Aleha Shemin, and you pour on it oil, Ve'evia, and you can bring it, V'kain Ve'evia, Ela Kain to the Kain, and we darshan, Mikamitza Ve'elach Mitzvahs Kuna, from the avoida of the Kamitza, when you take out the 3 fingers worth, that was done by the Kain. Limit, what does that teach us? Al Yitziko, Belila, on the mixing of the dough, that was what? Shekesher b'chol adam. That's motivated by anyone. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. The kneading of it was seemingly not done by Kehanim. Answers the Gemara, Lisha, when it comes to kneading, hey, there is reason last. You're right. It was done by Yisraelim. However, B'makim's reason Isa, it was done within the place of this reason, meaning it had to be done in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Kehanim were there, making sure everything went smoothly. The Mar teaches us, Belila Kshira Bizar, the mixing is kosher by Azar, Chotz L'chaim Ez Azara, Psula, that is Pasol, Lafuki Latisa, Dana Biz reason. It comes to exclude the soaking of the kernels, which was not done by his reason, V'loi B'makim's reason, and that was done in the place of the Beis HaMikdash. That's by the kernels, you were not allowed to soak, so afraid they're going to come Chametz. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Why is there any difference on the minute carbon oimer? The Tanya learned to the Bryce. The minchas oimer leisen I saw, v'saibin I saw. That what? You're allowed to soak it and as well pile it up. Why are you allowed to soak it? Why are we afraid it's going to come chametz? Answers the Gemara. Sibur shiny. That was a carbon sibur. There were more people involved, so they were more careful. That is the end of this discussion of the fact that the carbon Pesach, the matzahs on Pesach, you're not allowed to soak with lukewarm water because you're afraid they can become chametz, even though the mincha you're allowed to because mincha is done by Kehanim in the place of the Kehanim, etc. Tan Rabbanan, 5 lines of the Bana. You would think you're allowed to be yotzei, you're chiyav with bikurin. As Rashi says, what's the case? Like a kohen that brings his own wheat as bikurin to Yerushalayim. So you would think you could take that wheat and make it into matzah. Says the Torah, in all your places, matzah be sanekid everywhere. You have to be bikurin. Bikurin has to only be in Yerushalayim. Therefore, it's excluded from being matzah. Matzah Mar, we learn out from Matzah Mar. Mar Shein Bikurin. Just like Mar, you're not allowed to make from Bikurin, not Matzah, Shein Bikurin. Why not allowed to make Mar from Bikurin? So Rashi in the last line speaks out. Because Bikurin is something that comes from the Zayin Minim. And Mar is not one of the Zayin Minim. So therefore, he cannot be from Mar. Ask the Gemara 1 second, and that's how we're also going to know that Bikurim cannot be matzah. Ima Mar Shein Mina Bikurim, not matzah Shein Mina Bikurim. So too by matzah should not be allowed to be made from a min, which is what? As we flip over to the base, wheat and barley are parts of items that are Bikurim, are part of the Zayin Minim. So seemingly the same exclusion should exclude you to make matzah from them. Tamalaymar says the Gemara, no, matzah is riba. The double wording of matzah comes to include to make matzah from wheat, from items that you can use as bikurim. Ask the Gemara 2 lines down, then even it should work by bikurim. I'm sorry, matzah is riba. Yeah, afilu bikurim nami. So then if we have an extra inclusion of matzahs, it should come to include that you can even use matzah from bikurim. Answers the Gemara, Hadr Bei Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says you're right. We do not learn out this thing from matzahs. As the Gemara will prove right now, Rabbi Kiva learned it out from a different pasuk. The Tanya, as we learned to the Brisa. So let's see. You would think you could be Yotzi Chiva Matzah with wheat of the Kurim. Damalamer says the Torah. How seems this should sound very familiar, so similar to the Meiser Sheni. Matzah is eaten in all places. You have to be Kurim. So you would think that I could only also exclude Meiser Sheni. Damalamer Matzah is riba. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. How do you know how to do this weight that we're including? You're including Meiser Sheni items, and you're excluding Bikurim. Marani Meiser Sheni, Sheish Laheter B'chol Moishvayz K'Rav Elazar. Explains the Gemara, you know why? Because Meiser Sheni, according to one opinion, is allowed everywhere. And that's why you could, yes, use matzah from Meiser Sheni produce. Omoteni Bikurim, Sheni Laheter B'chol Moishvayz. Bikurim is an item that never has a heter. That's why we exclude it. Amar Rav Elazar teaches Menayin Meiser Sheni. How do you know Meiser Sheni Shenitma, that became Tamei Shapoitin Oisei B'Yushalayim, that you could, yes, redeem it even Yerushalayim, meaning Rav Elazar held that Meiser Sheni is an item that's not only eating Yerushalayim, but rather you can be pointed to redeem it even outside Yerushalayim, whereas according to Tanakama, the moment it comes to Yerushalayim, it can't leave. Talmud says in the Torah, Yisuchal Se'esai, Ve'ein Se'ez El Chila, refers to eating it, Shnemar V'isa Masois Meis Panav, and therefore we learn out. Says Rav Elazar that if it's impossible to eat the Meiser Sheni where you are because it's tummy and whatnot, then you redeem it and you eat it outside of Yerushalayim. And now it concludes our proof. Man Shamas Le Damer Meiser Sheni Nafik Bey. Who is the Tana that holds that from Meiser Sheni you could, yes, be Yoitze your mitzvah matzah with Rabbi Akiva. So they see that this price, so this lengthy price that we just quoted was the sheet of Rabbi Akiva. And yet what do we see? Become a Mayale Bikurim. And where did Rabbi Akiva learn how to exclude Bikurim? Not from matzahs, as we thought 2 lines from the top. We see clearly Rav Akiva is chayzer, and he does not learn it out from matzahs. Rather, Rav Akiva learned it out from Says the Gemara of Rav Yisek, Lili Teip Lemi Lachamayni. Why does Rav Yisek Lili learn out from Lachamayni? Misha Noichal Ba'ayni, only something that could be eaten. Ba'ayni, meaning when you're an ayni, that should come to exclude Meiser Sheni, which cannot be eaten. Ba'ayni, says the Gemara, sorry, so it should include Meiser Sheni, which has to be eaten b'simcha. Says the Gemara, Yosek Lili, something like Rav Shemin. The Tani, we learned to the Brayse, Bikurim asurim la'aynin. Bikurim are forbidden for an aynin. Rav Shemin matir. Rav Shemin says you could, yes, aynin ki bikurim. My time of the Rabbanan. Why do the Rabbanan hold within his last machlekes that bikurim are aser for an aynin? Rav Shemin says it's mutter. Why do the Chacham hold it's aser? Rabbanan. You cannot eat it within your gates. And we explain. Chumas yodecha. It's coming to the chuma of your hand. Elu bikurim diskish bikurim lemaiser. That's referring to bikurim, and we see a connection bikurim to meiser, and therefore what? Ma meiser aser la'inain, af bikurim aser la'inain. Says the Tanakh, says the Rabbanan. Just like meiser is aser, so to bikurim is aser. For Rav Shimon, what does he do? Truma. Karinu Rachmana, says Rav Shimon, the Torah calls it Truma, kid Truma like Truma. Ma Truma mutar is la'aynein, just like Truma is mutar la'aynein, Bikurim mutar la'aynein. So that is the machlekes Tanakama and the Rabbanan and Rav Shimon, whether Truma can be eaten by an aynein or not. Says Rav Shimon, yes. Says the Chachamim, no. Asks the Gemara and Rav Shimon, and this is where we're going to conclude. For Rav Shimon, according to Rav Shimon, they hate the hekesh last day. Very good that there's no hekesh equating it to. There's no hakish equating it to, like the Chachamim held, says the Gemara, equating it to Chuma Sheni, I should sorry, Meiser Sheni. But says the Gemara, Simcha miach michtav ksiv bei, but it says Simcha tersev is a machta b'chol ha'toiv, and therefore that should teach us they cannot use Meiser Sheni for matzah because you cannot eat it when you are in oinin. And it says lechem oini, which we're learning right now, like the aleph. Says the Gemara, ha'ol is man simcha. Rav Shimon learns out that's referring to the time of simcha, not when you actually have to be b'simcha dasa. That's now we learned to the Mishnah, me'atzeres adachag from Shuas to Sukkis. Maybe v'kairi, you bring bikurim and you read the appropriate parsha. Me'chag el Chanukah, from Sukkis to Chanukah. Maybe v'einai kairi, you're not going to read the parsha of bikurim. And therefore Rav Shimon says we do not learn to exclude Meiser Sheni because it has to be at a time of Simcha, like the Tanakama held, they're going to learn it out, and therefore you won't be able to bring it when you're an Oini. Rather, Rav Shimon says first the time of Simcha, and that's the only time that you can have the full Chiv of Bikurim and even read the Parsha. We'll pick it up from here tomorrow.